Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geologist, geophysicist, space weather guy, your cosmic bro, here to help you understand what is happening on the planet, what is happening with our sun in the solar system, in our interstellar cluster, within the entire cosmos. And well, all those things are happening right now. We have a lot that has been occurring here on Earth as a result of our external environment being influenced by the sun, by the planets, and by the cosmos. And so this month has been pretty insane in many ways. It's been very remarkable. I mean, you could probably write an entire book on what's already happened in January of 2026. And at times, it's felt like these different forces have been just active, but not really interconnected. Like we're reporting all of a sudden on these Schumann resonances, which have been going on for like 3 days. And then all of a sudden we see this super radio burst from Cyngus X-3. And then we have this historic solar storm impact. And then we have this anomalous earthquake activity. And it's all kind of just been like all over the place. And of course, on the channel, I'm always searching for a connection, if there is one, between these different things, because more often than not, there is, right? The universe is holistic in nature. Well, after reviewing some of this data, I really think I have found the connection, and some of these unanswered questions are now more resolved. I do not claim to know everything. Do your own research. There's much more that we don't know than we do know. That said, we're not totally clueless. So with some good investigation detective skills, I have pretty much put together a fairly nice timeline and sequence of events that really shows a clear connection. And it shows that something big is changing right now. And that really has been as a result of this solar storm impact that we had back on January 19th, 20th, 21st, like that solar flare on I believe it was January 19th, though maybe it was the 18th. 1.9 X-class flare, huge coronal mass ejection, S4 radiation storm, strongest in more than 20 years, about 23 years. G4 geomagnetic storm that actually spiked up to G5 minus levels at one point. This changes the Earth in some ways for a long duration of time. We're just now at the beginning of that. These changes can last not just days or weeks, but months. Some people have even shown with research that it can be years, like there can be remodeling to the radiation belts that last like years. And so I think what we're seeing, and that solar storm has some very unique attributes to it. I think what we're seeing is that having unlocked something that's now leading to bigger changes. And actually, it's really been a domino effect the whole way, as you'll see. I'll explain as I go. But this is interesting because all this is occurring in this succession leading up to the great conjunction between Saturn and Neptune, February 20th of next month, 2026. So it really appears that we're ramping up to something there. And there is a lot of history on these great conjunctions. You can look at the mundane astrology if you want to see how it has connections to historical events. But just in general, when you get a great conjunction, it is powerful. This is the biggest planetary resonance that we have had between two outer planets in terms of conjunctions since 2020, with Saturn and Jupiter performing their great mutation on the solstice, December 21st of 2020. Before that, it was the Pluto-Saturn Ceres Mercury-Sun conjunction on January 12th, 2020. That was a really big one. This one is equivalent in scale. And then after that, we have a lot happening through 2026 to 2032, but the next big one would be Saturn and Uranus meeting up in 2032. And you'll see that the common factor here is Saturn, because in 2020, we had Saturn-Pluto. 2020, in December, we had Jupiter-Saturn. Jupiter did a whole bunch of conjunctions with things as well. Since then, we had the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction in 2024. That was big. But now Saturn is meeting Neptune, and then Saturn will move over and reach Uranus. So it will have reached the three outermost planets, being also an outermost gas giant itself further out than Jupiter, meaning big changes unfolding at deeper scales and wavelengths and deeper structures of society, the Earth. Saturn relates to the solid Earth, geology. And with Neptune being this dissolving ephemeral influence, also being very much an influence that is relating to the interstellar and cosmic environment, this all makes sense. So let us get into it. There's a lot to cover today. Let's just start with basically some of the results that are happening right now, which is our earthquake activity. And so we can look right here. Here we have our global daily earthquake counts, magnitude 4+, going from January 1st to the 29th, universal time. So it does not include anything for today, the 30th. That's because today hasn't finished. And also, I see you all in the chat. Hello and welcome. We will do a question and answer after the report. So if you have a question and you want it answered, then make sure you attach it to a super thanks. If you're watching this afterwards, you can, there's a timestamp for the question and answer. So you can watch up to this and leave, or you can, watch those Q&As. There's often a lot of good stuff that happens in the Q&A. And I will also take some questions from the general chat before I do the super thanks. So make sure you're ready with your question. I'll take maybe 2, 3, or 4 questions from general chat before we do the super thanks. The super thanks questions you can ask at any time because they get saved in a separate list. So just FYI. So the past few days have been really remarkable for earthquake activity if you examine the trends closely. If you didn't examine the trends closely, you would have missed this. But I did the data analysis as I reported on in a prior video a few days ago. And well, that was for the 26th of January. We had this really quite phenomenal burst of seismic energy only in the magnitude 5 to 5.9 range without a high magnitude 6+ earthquake. Because typically the average is you get about 4 to 5 magnitude 5 to 5.9 earthquakes a day. That is across a long time span. That's the average. The standard deviation is about the same amount. It's about 4.7 or something like that. It's like 4.5, 4.7. So one standard deviation above normal is just under 10. And then another standard deviation is about 15, just under 15. So on the 26th of January, we were greater than 2 standard deviations from normal earthquake activity in terms of magnitude 5 to 5.9 without there being a stronger earthquake. Because when you have a magnitude 6+ earthquake, you will usually get aftershocks in the magnitude 5 range, and they'll typically be a few of them. If there's a magnitude 7+ earthquake, you'll get a lot. So you exclude that data, and what we saw is that on the 26th, looking at data from 2015 up to the present moment, this day here and also January 24th of 2020 were remarkable. Or maybe it was 2021. January 24th of 2021 and January 26th of 2026 were basically extreme outliers. There were 9 days in total that had 15 or greater earthquakes in that magnitude 5 to 5.9 range without there being a high magnitude earthquake. The other 7 were either because they were part of an aftershock swarm from a bigger earthquake a day, 2, 3 days ago, or there was an anomalous seismic swarm in one location which greatly elevated the numbers. This was distributed globally. It was around north of New Zealand in the Kermadec Trench, near Tonga, Philippines, Indonesia, other parts of the globe. Well, what happened on the 28th is that we had 19 magnitude 5 to 5.9 earthquakes without there being a magnitude 6, which is even more anomalous. So now there was a bit of a burst in the Philippines, but it wasn't a majority of the events. So the 28th of January was even more intense in terms of that specific occurrence of earthquakes in the 5 to 5.9 range, and just there being a huge frequency of them. Then the 26th, and the 26th was already historic. The common factor between what happened on the 26th and also the 28th of this month and January 24th of 2021 is that we had those planetary resonances. I mentioned Jupiter, Saturn, right? Well, that was December 21st of 2020. We had that great conjunction. There was an alignment that was active effectively through January. And well, we have this alignment that's occurring right now, both of these being within 1 month of that alignment. So that's pretty notable. So yeah, just we're not going to die. Everything is fine. I'm really basically just piecing together what's been happening, and we're kind of working backwards right now so we can understand what's going forward. But we do have things that happen on this planet which are significant, and so it appears that something has shifted with our planet that's leading up to that. We're leading up to this, and I don't know what this means in the long run. But it's good to be aware and prepared. And if you're just someone like me who's interested in what's happening on the Earth and what's happening energetically in our solar system, right? I'm not here just to focus on mundane matters. Like as a citizen of the universe, I want to understand what's happening in the universe. So that's really the point of this, and really one of the main focuses of this channel. So this seismic activity, with that context, I didn't process data going before 2015, but I probably will at some point. But regardless, within that 11-year time frame, we only have 3 days that are anomalous like this in earthquake activity, 2 of them being back-to-back right here in January. So that's odd. We did then have a magnitude 6 earthquake yesterday, South Sandwich Islands, and that energy, that seismic energy from that magnitude 6 is about equivalent to all the earthquakes here in this magnitude 5 to 5.9 range. Same also here. So in terms of seismic energy, that is equivalent. But in terms of the frequency of these magnitude 5s, that is quite bizarre. Well, let us go also to what is happening literally right now in the sky. This is pretty cool. So here we see that we have our coronagraph imagery of the sun, our C3 coronagraph, 32 solar radii across. We see 3 bright points of light here. The sun is in the center. This circle denotes the sun. They put a disk over it, so we block most of the light so we can see the solar wind and solar storm outflows. So you see a little bit of plasma there. Well, this is Mars. Mars right now is effectively conjunct Pluto. So Pluto is right here in this zone as well, though it's too dim to see. We have Venus right there. There's Mercury. We just had a Mercury-Venus conjunction, and this is notable because of how close together they are. But in general, going back, we had this huge planetary sequence where we had Mars and Venus conjunct with the sun, a triple conjunction around the 8th of January. And now we're having all these things unfold. And the last bit of this is we had the Mercury superior conjunction here around the 21st, 22nd of January. That's right when that big solar storm came in. That's often a sign, that planetary resonance specifically, the superior conjunction of Mercury, where it's on the far side. All these are on the other side of the sun. That's often connected to more enhanced solar activity and space weather. That's what we had. Now Mercury's caught up and they are conjunct, but often Mercury is at a different inclination. It's like up here, down there. For them to be this close together is quite rare. And let me show you the planetary alignment that we had back on the 8th of January, because this is where things get really interesting. Okay, so now we're going to start building forward. But I wanted to show you that this earthquake activity that we had has been extremely anomalous, and that in my mind is some indication that something is changing with the Earth for it to be having that many lower magnitude earthquakes. These are magnitude 3s or 4s though. These are all magnitude 5s. Without there being a big rupture, could speak to a larger plate movement. Perhaps. This is mostly concentrated in the Ring of Fire. But here we can go back to the 28th of December 2025, and there was a comet that was in this area. This is C2024 E1 Weierstrass comet. Maybe I didn't pronounce that correctly. There's a link to this in the video description. I'll put that once the video is done, okay? But this right now is the comet that is closest to the sun. Its perihelion was on the 20th of January. So just performed its perihelion. It's visible in the southern hemisphere and has a magnitude right now about 6.6. So it's very bright. I didn't learn about this until just a couple of days ago, but I did some looking at it. And well, this is pretty interesting. So I've been talking about this planetary alignment that was occurring at the end of January or the beginning of January for more than a year now. We've been talking about this for a while. This is right when the comet is along the ecliptic plane. If I go forward here, you see it starts to dip below. But let's go to the 8th of January. Here is when we had that Mars. Here's when we had that Venus, Mars, Sun triple conjunction, okay? Look at the comet. That comet is perfectly in line with Venus, Mars, and the Sun. Though it is at a lower latitude, longitudinally, it is exactly in line. And well, that's notable because we had this very impressive planetary sequence that occurred right at that moment in time. So I think I have this video saved in my folder here, but I have to show you a video. Let's see if this does it. Maybe this is it. I'm not sure this is the right one. It is. Okay. So we were predicting, based off of this planetary geometry for more than a year now, that it would trigger more intense solar activity, because we have an example from 2006 going from October to December where sunspot numbers increased 4 times, going from less than 15 to greater than 60 during the very end of the descending phase of solar cycle 23. And we all of a sudden had this sunspot growth occur on the far side as these planets on the far side did their conjunctions. And then as that sunspot rotated towards Earth, it blasted us twice. So on the 8th, we saw this conjunction occur between Venus, Mars, and almost perfectly in line with the Sun as well. And right at that time, boom, there's a coronal mass ejection, full halo, far side, big solar explosion. We don't know the actual classification for the solar flare for that, whether it was an X-class flare, what the level was, because we don't have a probe there. Probably an X-class flare, I would think, almost certainly. But we see right there, Mars, Venus, the Sun, boom, there's that coronal mass ejection. On the 8th, the very beginning, 8th of January, universal time, if we go back here, again, January 8th, we see that this comet was also in line with that. We've been talking about how comets are connected to solar activity for a long time on the channel, really focusing on that this fall. We're talking about that a ton in September and October. Also last year around the fall, we seem to have a lot of activity with comets, at least the past 2 years, in the fall. Well, we were ready to look at this planetary geometry as being significant. Well, we had the comet joining in at the same time, okay? Then as we go forward here, we see that the comet is dipping below. It has perihelion on the 20th of January. That is right when we had a whole bunch of activity from the Sun, big solar flares, and that perihelion was at 0.56 astronomical units, okay? Well, we also had this happen. This was historic. We had these extremely anomalous Schumann resonances going from the 18th of January to the 19th. This is observed out of the Space Observing System in Tomsk, Russia. Put a link to this in the video description as well, though you can see the URL right there. And we're looking at the vertical electric field going from 0 to 40 hertz. This is the frequency range that our brain waves operate at. A lot of natural biologic rhythms are within this extremely low frequency range. And for example, we often see pre-earthquake signals in the Schumann resonances, specifically from modes 3 to modes 5. So that would be 14 hertz up to about 33 hertz. Well, look here. We see these anomalous signals spanning nearly 3 days. This is 72 hours across. It's about 2.5 days here. The longest we have ever seen them. At least I've never seen Schumann resonances of this duration. We made a video talking about how this was perhaps indicating a really big earthquake to come, even perhaps a megaquake. Thankfully, we did not have anything occur during the critical time window that I identified of January 20th to 23rd. So that's a good thing. This does not mean that the risk is over. Now, actually, I would say because we're having this increased magnitude 5 earthquake activity, this is perhaps showing that whatever's building is really building up. But we hope that nothing happens. I'm just really reading the signs and signals here. But this was historic, okay? January 18th, January 17th, January 18th, January 19th. We had this big sunspot group starting to rotate towards the Earth, but typically when we get big sunspot groups, Earth facing, we don't see these sort of signals. So the big question was, where is this energy coming from? That was really the big unknown, okay? We see our Q factor here, a measure of resonance amplification, reaches like really high values, 310 there for mode 3, 20 hertz, 130 for mode 2 at 14 hertz, 54 for mode 4 at 26 hertz. So these are really high values showing that there was this effect with resonance, that as the energy was going into the system, not that much was leaving, causing this amplification of the vibration like that, just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so this really looked like we had something huge coming, like a big earthquake. Thankfully, that has not happened yet, though it's still only January 30th. And well, the bigger the signals are like this, if they are pre-earthquake signals, the further out in advance they can be. So keep that in mind. Typically, we see something happen within a week of these sort of signals, but because these are so significant, so strong, such a long duration, 2.5 days, it could be even like 1, 2, 3, 5 weeks. So that's still in play. Thankfully, it did not happen during the most critical time window with the planetary geometry and the solar activity. Well, something else that we covered on the channel is this radio burst, this giant radio flare from Cyngus X-3. Now, if you go to the Astronomer's Telegram, you'll see that there's a lot of stuff always happening, okay? So I want to make this clear, like new large NIR brightening of blazar, whatever, NIR flare, right? You know, high frequency detection of this or that. But something drew me to the Cyngus X-3 radio flare, a giant radio flare, because A, this is a binary star that has been studied extensively, and it's quite like we see these every few years or so, but it's definitely notable when we get Cyngus X-3 to do a giant radio flare, and they're at gigahertz frequencies. So now the data has come in, and we can see what's happened with this flare. We can look at the data right here. Here we see our preliminary data for this giant radio flare that occurred from Cyngus X-3 in the Cygnus constellation. We'll look at the location for that because it all makes sense. At 1.4 gigahertz. And we see there the 15th of January. There's the 16th. That's January 17th. That's January 18th. That's January 19th. Okay. It only gets a data point once per day because the Earth rotates and aligns, and boom, they get it. This data also being taken, I believe, by some Russians. So that's important to note because here, let's look here. Tokyo University, well, where is this located? The Nasu Radio Telescope Array. Let's type that in really quick and see what the deal is. Tochigi Prefecture, so Japan, Tokyo, but basically East Asia, which is actually still works for what I'm talking about here, okay? But we had this giant radio flare, January 17th, January 18th, January 19th. Oh, look at this. We had extreme anomalies in the Schumann resonances January 17th, January 18th, and January 19th. I bet that's that giant radio flare. I would not be surprised. The other reason I think that is because we can look at our planetary resonances. And so let's look at this really quick. We're going to come back to this as well. But here we have our solar system. And let me just quickly show you this planetary alignment that we had. It's been ongoing for a while now, but here is the 8th of January. This is where we have the Earth, Venus, Mars conjunction. Now, keep in mind that comet is right below the ecliptic plane there as well. We have Jupiter behind, right? This is the alignment. Really incredible. If we look up, so northern hemisphere, look what we see. The constellation of Cygnus. This is the Swan constellation. It's well up in the northern hemisphere, but that's the constellation of Cygnus right there. And well, here's the Earth. And specifically, Tomsk, Russia, is near Mongolia. So it's like up here in the northern hemisphere. Other public stations for the Schumann resonances are more closer to the equator. And so this location in Tomsk is perfectly situated to get energy from the northern hemisphere, from Cygnus. And well, we had that giant radio flare occur at the exact same time. And something drew me to that flare. Just intuition drew me to cover that giant radio flare I've also been covering the Schumann resonances, so I think this is all connected together. So we had that happen. After that occurred, and let me close out of this, and we'll come back to that. After that occurred, we had this solar storm impact, which was in many ways absolutely historic. So we can go here, and actually we're on the right data feed already, and let's set this for 30 days. We're going to check out this solar storm impact. Okay, you can see it very clearly. You had basically flat conditions. There's the impact. We had magnetic field values reach that we almost never see. But let's zoom in specifically here. That should do it, just like that. And here we are. We see that this really started off there at about 1830 on the 19th of January. We started to get our impact. We had this EMP shock wave that came in. Look at our values here. If I go a little further, right there, 85 nanotesla. It actually went up above 90. Normal field values are 5. And so this magnetic field carried by this solar storm was in many ways equivalent to a Carrington coronal mass ejection, like a Carrington event. It had extreme velocity. It went up to about 1,150 kilometers. That's fastest. Now that's not as fast as a Carrington event, but it's very, very fast. It's definitely notable. The main thing that saved us from having a huge, huge solar storm and like massive aurora viewing event and things of that nature, like G5, long duration G5 geomagnetic storm, basically the strongest geomagnetic storm since 1989, at least. I think it would have been stronger than that, is the fact that the field flipped positive. It went northward. So you have different component directions to the magnetic field. You can measure the total strength, but you can also measure the X component, the Y component, and the Z component. That Z component is really important because Earth's Z component has a positive, basically, value. And so when the interplanetary magnetic field all of a sudden has a negative value, it connects really nicely to Earth's magnetic field, injects a bunch of energy, and causes a really big geomagnetic storm. Now, when the field strength, when the solar wind has a positive BZ component, it changes how the solar wind impacts the Earth. It injects further down near the magnetotail and creates these different currents. So it's not like there's no impact, but it is different than when we have a strongly negative connection and charges up the Earth in a quite different way. We had a super strong positive component. Here we see that it was for a long duration of time. Let's really punch in on this, okay? Let's really punch in right about there. That should do it. We see that for a long duration of time, the total field value was like 60, 65, right? And the Z component, the BZ component, was hovering near 60. That is crazy. That is a lot stronger than the solar storm impact that we had May 10th to the 12th of 2024, the Mother's Day storm, or the Gannon storm, which was a G5 long duration storm. This was a lot stronger in its magnetic field than that. It's the only reason this was not a super long duration, ultra intense G5 storm was because this was a positive field component. But I'm getting the sense that because it was so strongly positive, these effects have been lengthened in duration rather than just being nullified. Just because we didn't have a huge mass injection of plasma instantly because of a negative BZ field, just a negative solar wind field, we're seeing longer term changes unfold because these drive really strong Birkeland currents in the auroral circuit area. But again, how interesting is it that we had this giant radio flare from Cyngus X-3 from December 13th and 19th at its strongest. We had these planetary alignments that formed early January, which initiated that sunspot growth, it seems, because again, that big burst on the January 8th, we also had that comet right there, which had flown in from deep interstellar space, right? This thing flew from way out there, came in. It's not Interstellar Object like 3i Atlas, where it's going to continue on and never reach our solar system again. It does have a trajectory which will bring it back, but that doesn't mean it's not going out thousands of astronomical units, which is well beyond the solar system and the heliosphere, right? That participated in that alignment. Sunspot clusters were formed, rotated towards Earth, giant radio flare hit, 17th and 19th. Extreme ultra anomalous Schumann resonances are registered from the northern hemisphere, where you would get that signal from Cyngus X-3, right, Tomsk, Russia, which is located in the constellation of Cygnus, well up in the northern hemisphere, and then this solar storm hit. So the solar storm came in, and now we're seeing very anomalous earthquake activity. And also, as this came in, that comet was at perihelion. So, it's not like the comet at perihelion triggered the solar storm, but they all converged together. That is the point. And now we're seeing the longer term trend of this, because again, we're seeing this earthquake activity now 2 days in a row be quite anomalous. So that is indicating that this is the beginning of this transformation of energy that came in from the sun, which seems to have been triggered initially like a domino effect from the planetary resonances and also our cosmic environment. Cygnus X-3, God, how far away is that? I don't remember how many light years away that is, but it's not close, folks. It's pretty far away. So let's check it out. We'll get an answer on Wikipedia. Distance, oh yeah, I can just say here. Distance is 7,400 plus or minus 1,000 parsecs. So this is a long ways away, okay? Parsec is equivalent to 3.26 light years. So we're talking about like 24,000, let's say, light years away. So Cygnus X-3 is not close. That is definitely, it's in our galaxy, but this is definitely cosmic energy, baby, okay? Plus we have Interstellar Object 3I Atlas right here nearby. So if we look here, this is set for now today. Let me go forward to the 30th. Here we have our solar system, thanks to the Sky Live. Here we have 3I Atlas, and it is going to be getting close to Jupiter. Well, before it gets close to Jupiter, which is going to be March 17th or so, I think it's right around here, it's as closest to Jupiter. As you can see, we have this great conjunction between Saturn and Neptune. That will be in February, specifically February 20th. If you look here, we will see Saturn and Neptune conjunct right there. See them? Earth, Saturn, Neptune. So it looks like we're building up to something there. And when we had Saturn and Neptune at their closest in July of last year, they got within 12 or 13 arc minutes of each other, middle of July of 2025. We had 2 weeks later a magnitude 8.8 megaquake in Kamchatka, where there's been tremendous energy volatility since. We had the megaquake. We have, for example, what was it? Krashenikov volcano woke up for the first time in 600 years. There's been tremendous activity from the volcanoes on the Kamchatka Peninsula since up to current moment right now. You can check my Twitter X if you want, at Stefan Burns Geo. I repost, videos that people have captured of different volcanoes, earthquake events, everything. Stay up to date there. Also, there's been historic snowfall in East Asia, specifically Kamchatka. Strongest snowfall in 60 years. So it's really been a song of ice and fire. And there's just been tremendous energy volatility there. We've seen disruptions to the polar vortex, again, northern hemisphere, giant radio flare coming in from Cygnus, anomalous Schumann resonances registered at the same time. And then this solar storm came in and really supercharged everything. So this is the event that we're building to. And Saturn really speaks to structure. It also speaks to the Earth. When we had, let's go back to last year, specifically right here, we were talking about this planetary alignment that occurred. And this came up, here's the day of the megaquake. July 29th, we have Neptune, Saturn, Earth, Mars, okay? If we go forward here to early August, we really see this go exact. Keep in mind, planetary alignments is that there's a little bit of breathing room to them, okay? So you don't get the event often, I mean, you sometimes do, but you typically don't get it the exact day the alignment's the craziest, but you get it pretty close to that. So here we have Neptune, Saturn, Earth, Mars on the 9th of August. Well, the archetypal symbology here, if you really know this stuff, it's pretty simple, is that you have Neptune being the oceans, you have Saturn being the solid Earth, and you have Mars here being a breaking influence, because Mars is connected to energy, it's connected to severing and breaks and cuts. And so you have a fault rupture. Mars is the rupture. Saturn is the Earth, the fault that ruptured in the deep ocean off the coast of Kamchatka. There's your magnitude 8.8 megaquake, right? And the Earth is in the middle of all that. That's a perfect representation of these energies. And it occurred almost just about 10 days before we had that alignment here on the 29th of July. And you'll notice that this alignment here, only 13 arc minutes away from perfect, was back around this time period right there. So we have something very similar occurring right now, where we have them getting very close to conjunction at this moment in time, and they will go perfectly conjunct February 20th. And so we've had this big planetary alignment already, but we are building up to this. And so it's making me think of what this could manifest as. There's a whole bunch of societal, economic, political stuff. For example, right now we're having huge volatility in the precious metals. Gold and silver have been on crazy historic parabolic increase runs, reaching all-time highs. Gold reaching all-time high of $5,500. Silver reached 120 plus bucks. Now gold is at like $4,800. Silver is, I think, just below 100. Like massive swings. We have the Saturn Neptune cycle being connected to silver, but also specifically this degree point in the solar system being connected to silver and precious metals. So we're seeing that get activated. So there's a lot of ways that this can express. The last time we had a Neptune-Saturn conjunction about 36 years ago, we saw the fall of the Berlin Wall. Before that, we saw the death of Stalin. Before that, the Russian Revolution. There's also connections with this with Iran and many other countries. You can go really far back in time, see how this has an influence on geopolitics, because Neptune is a dissolving agent on Saturn's structure, government, what's established, borders. But then we also see this disruption to maritime trade and more with Saturn on Neptune, this block, this limit. Right now there's, for example, Iran is saying that they may block the Strait of Hormuz, and oil flow, 20% goes through there. So you see how all these things play out geopolitically and internationally, whatever. But if you check the mundane astrology, big shout out to Dan Waits at World Astrology Report. If you want to stay up to date on all that, then watch his channel, become his member if you want. He does extended videos for members. That is the place to go to learn more about that. I just touch on it here just to give you a bit of extra context, but he goes in depth. But there's all those connections too, but there's also the connections to the Earth and what's happening with our sun and more. So now that I've pieced together how the Schumann resonances, for example, were connected to Cyngus X-3, we have this cosmic event 24,000 light years away interacting with the Schumann resonances, which are biologically relevant and directly overlap with our brainwaves in frequency and strength. You can see how this would affect the public, their sense of perception, their behavior, consciousness. Then you have this huge solar storm to come in, shaking up everything magnetically. It was a G4, a long duration G4 geomagnetic storm, because not like there was no aurora, right? This was a big storm. It just could have been way bigger if it had been a negative field. But because there's a positive field, it's changing the Earth in specific ways. Now we're seeing earthquake activity being more distributed and high magnitude in the magnitude 5 to 5.9 range in a way that's very bizarre. We have these planetary alignments and resonances that are active. Comet C 2024 E1, Wirtschafts, right in this alignment as well back on January 8th. So there's a lot happening. And by looking at the connections and the progression of all these things in January, I do think it gives us a little bit of an idea of what we have coming up in February, and that it's just going to be big, because each domino that is falling over is getting bigger than the last. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know. And I have no problem admitting I don't know. I have no problem admitting when I was wrong. I put out forecasts, not absolute, like 100% this is going to happen. So when we didn't have a really big earthquake, January 20th to 23rd, that's great. I thought we were more likely to have one than not. Thankfully, we did not. I was wrong on that, but that's what a forecast is. You put out percentages. And so thankfully that didn't occur. But, this solar storm impact that came in January 19th, 20th, 21st, we forecasted that out more than a year in advance. So, big home runs, and it looks like the Earth is still working with that energy. It's not ready to release it immediately, but because we're seeing this increase in the magnitude 5 earthquake activity in a dramatic fashion, 2 days now within 2 out of 3 days being anomalously high out of like a long time frame going back to 2015. And, that data is probably pretty representative of basically always. So that's like 4,094 days or something. And we have 3 days in there, which are very anomalous. And again, that's January 24th, 2021, and the 2 days that just happened. So yeah, this is really, I've never seen this progression and this sort of connection before between cosmic, solar, planetary, and Earth events. Usually it's just like solar flare and then earthquake, something like that. Or it's, we see the comet and then we see something happen with the sun. This is really everything combined. We have this giant radio burst from Cyngus X-3, which is a quasi, it's almost like a quasar. It's like it's a really big system. Not as big as Cygnus X1, but quite significant. We have the comet C2024, E1 Wirtschauss. We have Interstellar Object 3I Atlas. We have the earthquakes, the planetary resonances, the historic solar storm. They're all there, all the factors. It's really wild. So that is the presentation for today. I will now do a question and answer. So we'll take some questions from the main chat before I go to the super thanks. Super thanks questions can be asked at any time. So if you ask a question there, don't worry, I will get to it. But we'll take some from the main chat to begin. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you're all doing well. Again, right now, the most significant energetic event that we have unfolding at this moment in time would be, outside the earthquake activity, would be this conjunction, this wonderful conjunction between Mercury and Venus, the closest that they can get together. So perhaps you are feeling into this energy right now. This is a very lovely combination that's active at this moment in time. And so, yeah, so there are certain things that are really resonating with these energies, silver and gold being one example. It's interesting that there's a lot of myth and legend connecting gold and silver to like extraterrestrials and stuff. There are these metals that are very conductive and probably connect to these energies, and we're seeing huge volatility with them, huge swings up, huge swings down. I think that's going to continue to increase and build up to the conjunction between Saturn and Neptune in February. None of this is financial advice, but we're looking at that being a trigger mechanism probably. So yeah, interesting that we're seeing all this happen right now. You can do the connection all the way from the cosmic to literally our economic system, which is wild. It's really, really wild. So looking for questions. Yeah, thank you. All caps for the questions so I can see them easily. Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually have one other thing to present. So what about the dream? I had, during that solar storm impact, I had this really crazy dream. I wrote it down. I shared it on a podcast with Stuart Pierce. I believe that's his last name, Stuart Pierce. And that is coming out soon. Actually, maybe out today. He said he was going to release it on Friday, but I thought he meant last Friday. Either way, if that is out, I'll link that in the video description. But I'm, since I told him the dream and we went into it and everything, I'm saving it for that video, and that'll be released soon. So check my podcast guest appearances playlist for that, and that will eventually show up there once he releases the video. I also had another dream last night, and this one's pretty wild. So I'll share this one. And I wrote it down as well, but I can basically remember it pretty nicely. So I was back home, and this is not political, okay? This is in no way political, and I didn't have any charge or energy myself during this dream. So I know that some of you are not going to like the person that I'm about to say. Some of you love him, some of you hate him, okay? This isn't political. This is really just, you'll see what I mean. I'm back home, and for some reason, Donald Trump is at my house, and I'm like his personal aide. and he was like still in charge and everything, but he was like purposely a little bit out of the limelight, and like needed like a kind of like a safe place where no one was really badgering him, that no one would think he would be. And of course, I have all my own thoughts on this guy. But during the dream, there was no animosity or anything. It was really just like, okay, there was a printer that was broken. It's like, okay, let's swap out the printer. And, you know, him and my dad are actually roughly the same age. So there was this overlap with my dad. And in the larger scale, there are these energies that are being transmuted and sorted out between people in that age bracket across a global scale. So it was also me connecting into that whole field with people that are in their 70s and 80s and what they're working through. Of course, it's affecting everyone globally, but for some reason, I was his aide, and all of a sudden, and there was like this issue that occurred, and there was this energy, and I could like feel this energy. So that's why I was helping him out. And all of a sudden, there was like this loud bang, like this incredibly loud bang, and I looked outside, and there was this massive crack that opened up through the street, where the street actually buckled and caved and cracked open and everything. But it wasn't an earthquake. I was like, holy crap. And of course, this is what I do. So I was like, hey, dude, are you good to like just chill? Because I need to go out and like record this and live stream this or whatever. And, you know, he was like, yeah, I'm fine. So I ran outside and I saw this giant crack going through the streets on both sides. And then I also looked in the distance and a tree fell over into a building, like this 3-4 story building. This tree fell over, like massive tree. It's like, holy shit. And then I realized that this wasn't an earthquake. It was actually a discharge of energy that came from him. And this is like instant knowing. And the other instant knowing too was that this wasn't a discharge from him. This was a discharge literally collectively, and that he was more like a catalyst for this, because he's, you know, everyone's focused. Not everyone, but a lot of people are focused there. Good energy, bad energy, neutral, right? Certainly the president of the United States is like this central, you know, pivot point, whatever, for a lot of things. Good, bad, whatever. Again, that's not the point of this. But there was all this energy that had been built up specifically with Americans, you know, Americans, but globally, but really Americans. All this energy has been building, and then it violently discharged. And I got the sense that that's not something right now, but that discharge could be coming. Like that is the energy that's at play. And just simple physics, if you have a capacitor, you have two plates that build up in their charge. If the charge gets high enough, the potential energy gets high enough, then it can arc across whatever is in between them that's resistive. That's a lightning strike. That's literally a lightning strike, is that you have two electric field potentials that get so big, they can actually arc and ionize the air in between that's highly resistive, turn it into plasma, boom, you get the lightning strike. So that's what occurred. And I got the sense that I was there to help understand this process and also document and record it. But that's something that's occurring right now. So that's the dream I had last night. The other one will come out with the video from Stuart Pierce, and I'll link that in the guest appearances podcast. If it's out, it'll be linked in the video description already. But I'll link that playlist in the video description as well. So that's the dream last night. You can interpret that as you want, but I think we're going to see with Saturn and Neptune, I think that's all connected. The Saturn-Neptune energies will be help this discharge of energy to radiate out, because these structures which have been holding it in will be dissolved by Neptune. Neptune is that dissolving agent. So anything that's been holding back this energy can start to break, and then boom, and I think it's going to be violent. No one was hurt during this, and I didn't get a sense of danger or anything, but it was powerful, sudden, and strong, like really intense. So, so that's a dream that I had last night. Wanted to share that with you. And looking for questions from the main chat before I take the super thanks questions. Just looking around. I know that person drives a lot of people. It just triggers everybody. So, you know, I wasn't trying to trigger anyone, but we can't ignore sometimes certain energetic facts and everything. The US is going to have an outletting. We have a lot of history behind it. Exactly. We have right now Pluto return for the United States. It's just a few degrees, like 2-3 degrees from its Pluto return, 248-year cycle. We have Neptune return, same position right now as it was during the beginning of the Civil War. And you also have the Uranus return, which is in the Pluto return was where Pluto was for the American Revolution. Neptune's where we had it for the Civil War, and Uranus is the same position as it was for World War II, the Civil War, and the American Revolution. So we don't have just one of those. We have all three of those outer planets working with that. So yeah, there's a tremendous, this is what I'm talking about. It's really crazy stuff. And a question from CLP Dash, will there be any energy bursts when 3i Atlas is near Jupiter? What about Jupiter's gravitational impact on 3i Atlas will have a positive or negative effect on Earth? That I don't know. We know that 3i Atlas has these weird jets extending out from it. That's quite significant. We're getting more and more imagery from Hubble on 3i Atlas as it continues zooming out. So there'll be more updates on it on this channel for sure. Subscribe if you want to stay up to date on that. It's getting close to the gravitational field of Jupiter, like the Hill radius is what they call the edge of gravitational influence for a planet. It's getting close to that. I don't think we're going to see anything significant in terms of it, flying into Jupiter or even like fracturing apart. Maybe we get some sort of electromagnetic. I think we'll see maybe something electromagnetic between 3i Atlas and Jupiter. Jupiter has a super strong magnetic field. 3i Atlas has been very anomalously electromagnetic. Probably is magnetized. Its nucleus and its coma certainly is a complex dusty plasma. But at the end of the day, I think it'll just continue flying out of the solar system. And the effect that will have on Earth, I don't know. But we will be passing through where it was during its perihelion in March and also April. So there's going to be something there, I think. But what exactly, I don't know. It's probably going to be more not so direct of a manifestation, probably more like collective consciousness stuff, but I don't know. Yeah, exactly. And will that impact the polar vortex, passing through that tail? The polar vortex is a phenomenon exists in both hemispheres, but really the northern hemisphere is quite strong. We're having disruptions too. I think the solar storm impacted that. The giant radio flare looks like that, was a trigger for some of this stuff. 3i Atlas as well. Hard to say, but we're probably going to continue to see more volatility from the weather in general. We have had now the most snow in Moscow in 200 years, according to local meteorologists there, Moscow State University, I believe. So we're having, of course, there's some parts of the planet which are getting hot, 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 and other parts which are getting cold, cold, cold. So it's not just global warming, it's not just global cooling, it's global weather volatility. That's what we're seeing. I mean, in general, the Earth is warming up, but there are these extreme swings that are happening. So at the end of the day, I'm more comfortable saying we're seeing increasing volatility energetically on the planet rather than just giving a single direction of which way we're going. And if you want to hear my take on the giant structures under the pyramids, I recommend you listen to my podcast with Danny Jones. So you can go to his podcast on Spotify or YouTube and listen to that. There may be a clip of that, but I don't think he clipped the pyramids one. But that's a great podcast that we did. We go into a lot of topics. A lot of your Q&As actually be answered with that podcast. That's on my guest appearances playlist. I'll link that in the video description. And yeah, it's a nuanced thing. So I'm not going to answer with this Q&A, but you can go there if you want. And also, I have a Spotify too. So you should follow me on Spotify if you like to get updates there. And that is also my name. And that's linked in the video description as well. So definitely give me a follow on Spotify. I post all my videos there as well. And you can listen to those a little bit more easily than you can on YouTube, unless you're a premium member. I picked up the sweater today. I don't know why I went so crazy about it, but just picked it today at like a natural outdoor store. It's merino wool. It's really nice. I like the design, so I decided to pick it up and The volcano in Italy, there's a whole bunch of them. You probably mean Campi Flegrei. It's super active, been getting more and more active since 2020. But in terms of like big updates, we haven't had any really for a few months now. But if there are any, I will keep you up to date. In general, it's increasing its activity. So yeah, Danny Jones, he created like 8 clips from my podcast, which is way more than normal. And it was a good podcast. I feel like it was a really good one. So definitely give that a watch. Okay, I'm going to get to these super thanks questions, and then I'm going to sign off so I can have dinner and more. It is 8:30 here in Sweden. First question from Gazer873 is question: nickel 2 cyanides with 3i atlas allegedly sprayed off into space besides other elements. Impacts on Earth/life in March and April when Earth goes through its dusty cloud/plasma. To keep it really simple, and let me show you specifically then if we're going to talk about this briefly. I have a whole video on this already. But if we're going to speak about that, let me show you specifically just kind of what the deal was, okay? Was and is. Let's go back to October. We will see here, and let's kind of zoom out. I think that's probably good. Here we see 3i Atlas, and its perihelion was the 29th of October, zooming through here, okay? So it did not pass within the orbit of Earth, okay? If it did, we would undoubtedly be passing through its dust stream, you could say, because it is very closely aligned with the ecliptic plane. Now it's south of the ecliptic plane, but in general, only 5-degree inclination off of that. So if it had cut within the Earth, undoubtedly we'd be passing through that zone. The thing is that you have solar radiation pressure. So solar radiation will push the small dust grains away from the sun, but it's not strong enough to push the bigger grains of dust. Those will actually fall in towards the sun. So some people are saying there's going to be no interaction because all of that is getting blown out. Not all of it, just the small enough dust grains. The larger ones, like nanometer size, they'll get blown off. Larger ones will fall in towards the sun. They get pulled in gravitationally, and the radiative pressure is not enough to pull them in. The solar wind's not enough to push them out, is what I meant. So we are going to have, I don't know how significant, but if we go forward here to March and April, as we go through this right here, we will be going through some influx of material from 3i Atlas. Also, anything that's plasma becomes governed by the magnetic field, the electromagnetic fields. So, that doesn't matter in terms of its trajectory. Now, there's also a velocity component to this because it's going to have the same momentum as 3i Atlas. But if it's jetted off this way and then slowed down, there's going to be something that we move through. How much, how significant, and the composition of it, nickel 2 cyanide, how that's going to affect us, I don't know. I really, that's all I can say. What I can say mostly is that there's going to be some influx, but is it significant or not? I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't really go beyond that. But I think it's going to be interesting. But I don't think it's necessarily going to be, we have now a pandemic like the Black Death, sweeping around. I don't think it's going to be like that. I think it's going to be a little bit more metaphysical in nature, the impacts on us. But, Mildred, hi, Stefan. If the Ring of Fire goes further off, what are the possible number of repercussions? What specific areas might be affected, please? Well, in general, Ring of Fire has been very active, and specific areas that could be affected. Right now, we're seeing a lot of activity. Let's go to our earthquakes. Let's switch this to 30 days, okay? We've been seeing a lot of activity north of New Zealand, Kermadec Trench, Tonga. We've seen a lot of activity in Indonesia and the Philippines. So those are the zones like right here. Look at this, recent activity. If we set this for earthquakes there, here's a swarm for the Philippines, but this is across multiple days. See this going pretty far back. This looks like this could be a site of a big earthquake right there. We also have some activity here. That was a 6.4. We've had bigger earthquakes recently as well. And maybe you didn't see this because of the screen. Let me zoom in again. Yeah, so there it is right there, where we've been having a lot of activity. So we could see something big from the Philippines. Japan is definitely still on the table. Tons of activity from Japan, still anomalous in many ways. Conchaca is still very anomalous. After that mega quake, we're still getting big earthquakes there. See that 6.2, 6.2. We're still getting big magnitude 6 earthquakes there, 6 months later. But we're also seeing a lot of activity here. Tonga, Kermadec Trench. We had big Hunga Tonga, Hunga Ha'apai eruption January 15th, I believe, of 2022. So, that was huge. So we have a lot of things happening. It's hard to give very specific locations because the Earth is a big place and it's pretty difficult to give super close forecasts unless you have clear signs of something odd happening. And this is the zone that's the weirdest. Currently, locally, right now in the Ring of Fire, this is the area that is definitely the oddest. Western Philippines to the west of Davao City. So hope that answers your question. And try to join. YouTube said to contact developer. I don't know. You probably meant to join as a member. I don't really know too much about the membership and stuff. I just know that people wanted me to have that. So thank you for the super thanks. You probably need to connect like your account or something. I really don't know. And from Kara Cat, any idea what the vertical spikes between 9 a.m. and 6 p.m. on the Schumann graphs are? Let's check it out. They are very regular now. Any info from Tom's on interference? Well, there's been a lot of snow recently, and this looks like a signature from local weather. So that's probably what that is. When you get charging of the atmosphere locally, you often get these sort of signatures like that. So I would say it's probably 99% probably what it is, because global things look a lot different. We looked at those anomalies, right? That correspond to that giant radio flare from Cyngus X-3 looks a lot different than what we're seeing here from Tomsk right now. So this is almost certainly local weather. That's usually the case, which is why I don't make videos on the Schumann resonances every day, because we don't see weird things in them every day. We only see weird things in them every few months or so. And so when I make a video on the Schumann resonances, something is happening. So keep that in mind. If there's something happening in Schumann resonances, I will make a video on it, and you will know. If I'm not making a video on it, you can safely assume that everything is basically normal there. That's my guarantee I can give to you. So thank you for the super thanks. Will Apophis trajectory be influenced by 3i Atlas? No, it's a near-Earth asteroid. There's going to be no connection between them other than just, kind of close in time. But Apophis is like 2029, so gravitationally, they're not affecting each other at all. Electromagnetically, no. So that's, if that was the case, that could perhaps perturb the orbit, which would not be a good thing unless it was going further out. I guess the sweater is all the rage. So thank you, Hill Jackal, for the super thanks. That's really appreciated. Very generous of you. Many blessings and much love to you and everyone here in the chat. And from Lab 9567, could those Schumann resonances be picking up underwater or underground sweat on testing? Some country quietly maneuvering their capabilities? I kind of not following you with your English. I'm sorry if that's not your first language. I understand. But yeah, I mean, to broadly answer your question, which what I think you're getting at is, if maybe a country is doing like underground testing of nukes maybe, or something like that. Could that pick up in the Schumann resonances? Perhaps. We haven't seen, as far as we know, any underground nuclear testing going back to like 2017 from North Korea, I believe, somewhere in that time frame, 2017 or so. Maybe there's been covert testing, hard to say, but it wouldn't be a 3-day long thing. It would be, an underground nuclear test, maybe like an hour or two, if that. So this, I think, was very much connected to Cyngus X-3, Northern Hemisphere, Cygnus, exact same time. Those frequencies cut through the ionosphere. Somehow they turned into Schumann resonances. Really interesting stuff. Near-term likelihood of magnitude 6+ earthquake in NorCal, I think it's very high. But anytime this January, February, March, I think it's super elevated. But beyond that, it's really hard to forecast this stuff. But I do think it's much higher than normal because of everything that we've covered on the channel over the past month or two. Thank you for the super thanks. Gray Scout Epsilon, spirituality is religion corrupted, while spirituality connects humanity. Religion has largely divided it. Yeah, I would agree. I think religion is just one narrow view of spirituality overall, which is connecting to your spirit. So there's truth to religion, like the true religious principles are spiritual. It's all the structures and things and requirements that have been put onto religion that detract you from the spiritual stuff. And also any dark forces, they will seek to corrupt the religions that seek to connect you to source and light, because that's their easiest pathway. So there's also that factor as well. And if you read the saints and people that are really connected, Buddha, Jesus, others, right? They all effectively espouse the same things, even though they formed later on different religions. So that's really your key and your clue. Can we see where 3i Atlas was before July? Is there a way to see its trajectory before it's discovered, to see the astrological geometry as it came in? We can look at it right now. And yeah, the herb coffee, really good stuff. And so actually, before we do that, I wanted to do a promotion today. Let me just show you what we got on the website, because we have everything in stock right now. We're totally stocked up. So we have spirituality in stock. We have herb coffee in stock. These two are amazing. As these energies continue to build, these are some tea blends I'd recommend you pick up, especially the spirituality, because it connects you to these energy fields, these spiritual fields, right? I'm having these crazy dreams right now. I'm just one person, N equals 1. But if you want to have these sort of kind of like aha moments, then this is the herb tea blend to take for meditation, for dream enhancement, even astral travel. Some people have enhancements or sudden ability to do that. Few cases, but still more than zero. Herb coffee is great if you want to do focused, detailed research. It's half caffeine because it's half coffee, but there's also lion's mane mushroom in there. In general, really good for your gut microbiome, so you can get focused and neuropotentiate and build new neural pathways. So if you're interested in this stuff, you want to learn more, now is the time really to rewire your brain. This Saturn-Neptune conjunction speaks to also being able to reformat your brain, right? Sever old programming and connections that no longer serve you, and then build new ones that can empower you going forward. So this is a great product for helping you with that because of the coffee, its nootropic properties, and the lion's mane combined synergistically, also with the roasted dandelion root and the roasted chicory root as support. Really good stuff. But our latest tea blend is fully in stock. That is Festivity here. Really excellent stuff. It's apple, burdock root, and cherry, tart cherry, as well as licorice root and also chamomile. And then there's a spice blend of clove, allspice, cinnamon, and anise. And it's like a mulled tea. It's the best tea that you probably ever have. My dad says it's the best tea that he's ever had in his life. You can make a mulled wine out of it. You can make a mulled tea out of it. It's fantastic. It's sugar-free, but super flavorful. Definitely the tastiest tea you'll ever have in your life. Pretty good for you as well. It's not just like, loaded up with sugar or anything. You have the burdock root in there, the chamomile, the licorice, tart cherry, that's good for you. All the spice blends are really good for your microbiome as well, and just in general for your health and wellness. Cinnamon, right, your metabolism. So it's really fantastic stuff. That's available on the website. And you can also, after you're done brewing it, let that product cool down, blend it up, and bake it into a cake. And that's really good. So maybe not as healthy to have it with a cake, but it'll make the cake super flavorful. So it's great for when there's like a party, because you can serve that to the guests. And then if you have someone there with a cake mix, boom, in the oven, boom, 2 hours later, you're like all having fun, having dessert. Also merchandise, soil art paintings. We have all the crystals in stock and more. So all this is available on the website, earthevolution.com/store. I recommend you check it out. We are shipping everything out very quickly. So that's available for everyone in the United States. I hope you give that a look, and definitely check out the herb coffee, spirituality, and festivity. Now, before July, 3i Atlas was back here. So we see it coming in, and this is 2022. Here's 2020. That's an interesting alignment right here. It was roughly in line for that Saturn-Neptune, or for that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, the Great Conjunction in 2020. If we go forward, that occurred more over here, but earlier in 2020 it was aligned. And actually, if you go here specifically to January 12th, we see that it was perfectly, look at that. It was perfectly in this this Pluto-Saturn Ceres, Mercury, Sun, Earth alignment. So that's pretty wild. I didn't know that. We're doing it live. We're seeing it for the first time here. Someone else maybe has noticed this, but no surprise that that was such a powerful planetary resonance. Now that 3i Atlas also we've identified was in alignment with it, even further out than Pluto. See that? Even further out than Pluto. So that is wild. I did not know that. So yeah, it's been having energetic effects on us for a while. So thank you for that super thanks. And we're nearly done here. Yes, definitely recommend you pick up some of the products. They're really good, like basically all organic, the best stuff that you can buy. You know, we don't mess around. The whole point of the store is to provide you with really good products that improve your health and wellness, right? Because the stuff that you buy in like a grocery store is junk. You know, it's not organic. It's just dust. They lie to you. They're thieves. So that's not, you know, I'm a good, honest person, and I want you guys to be healthy, to be well, to be empowered, self-actualize, and more. So the tea blends are really good for you. They're so good for your health and wellness. Mystical Rose, January 19th was 3i Atlas, closest to the, not the sun, it was actually closest to the Earth on January 19th. It was closest to the sun as perihelion was October 28th, 29th. So could the 3i Atlas Trinity have been the catalyst of Christ's consciousness? Who knows? I don't know, but I definitely think it's having a big influence on our consciousness collectively and individually. But to put a specific label of how it's changed our consciousness is hard to say. But it's definitely, in my perception, experience, awakening consciousness and also increasing in like the level of consciousness. I'm comfortable saying that. So thank you for that super thanks. And could I see Aurora in Scotland coming up? If we have a big solar storm coming up, absolutely. If you have good weather, but we don't have anything right now on the radar, but perhaps soon. We did have a G1 storm just a day or two ago, but it was pretty short-lived. And I just purchased a home on a hillside. Bad idea. Depends on the local geology. You'd have to do a geologic assessment, see where bedrock is, look at the specific geomorphology and the risk of that. It could be a good structure. It could be a bad structure. You would really specifically want to look at the shear wave velocity for the top 30 meters, or it's a AVS 100 in the United States or an AVS 30. So an average shear wave velocity for the top 30 meters. That will give you a sense of how an earthquake will impact your specific location. Also, you could do a H/V survey, your horizontal over vertical spectral ratio, which will tell you what sort of frequency will cause the most shaking if it occurs, because earthquakes have different frequencies that they're more dominant in. So if you purchase a home, I would definitely invest the money in doing a basic AVS 30 and H/V or HVSR survey. Last question. I just tuned in. My question is, what do you think caused this stratospheric warming event? You may have gone over this. Thank you. I don't know. We have them more and more common now. You know, the closer you get to, the stratosphere is closer to the space weather environment than the troposphere, where we live, the lowest part of the atmosphere. So as you get closer and closer to the exosphere and basically the space environment, the more influence there is. That's not the only thing. You know, stratosphere is where there's a lot of global circulation, but there is a big impact of the space environment on the stratosphere. So I would think there's probably some connection there, but I really haven't researched too much into this current stratospheric warming event, though it is significant. And I'll do that. So thank you for the question, the super thanks. I appreciate that. And thank you all for joining in on the live stream today. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. Again, we have a whole bunch of products completely in stock on the web store, earthevolution.com. I really hope you check that out. We love to offer these products to you. We'll ship it out very quickly for everyone in the United States. And please subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with what is happening with the Earth energetically. It's earthquakes, volcanoes, severe weather, geomagnetic storms, everything else, solar activity, space weather like solar flares, big solar storms, planetary alignments and resonances, interstellar and cosmic forces, basically what we covered in today's video. It's a perfect example of what we cover here on the channel almost daily. Smash that thumbs up button, help the channel grow. It really does make a difference. Subscribe to me on Spotify. You can check me out on X. That's Stefan Burns Geo. It's linked, all of it in the video description, because I post updates there in between. You can get as connected into what I do as you want, or as disconnected as you want. It's up to you. It's all there, though. That is the point. Wishing each and every single one of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Make sure you find the time to rest, relax, and recharge as we continue to build towards this Saturn-Neptune conjunction. And then we have some really big energies coming up in March and April as well. So I'll keep you up to date on all that and more. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and I'll see you all very soon.